goal was simple: to see and experience as much as we could in the time we had. My brother Matthew and me, my name is Nick by the way, had just spent 4 days in Egypt's western deserts, and it was time for us to move on. We headed east, away from the black and white deserts and their mesmerizing landscapes, traveling by bus and by train towards our next destination. Much has been said about ancient Thebes, about its beauty and its historical significance, but I wanted to see it with my own eyes. In part 2 of our Egypt series, we explore the modern city of Luxor and fall in love with the Nile. At first glance, Luxor struck me as being like any other town. It had the typical assortment of shisha cafes, mule-powered carts, and loud, busy streets. After a long trip to get here, I wasn't exactly impressed. That is, until I went and checked out the Nile. With the Valley of the Kings so clearly visible on the horizon, and the warm evening sun setting across the water, I started to get excited about this city. I knew I was somewhere special when, while casually strolling along the boardwalk, I turned my head and happened upon a 3,000-year-old temple, buzzing with life right in the heart of the city. The construction of the Luxor temple was mostly shared between the pharaohs Amenhotep III and Ramses II. It was built to worship Amen, known to the ancient Egyptians as the king of gods, before he was to join the sun god, Ra. In an interesting twist, the temple was later fortified by Alexander the Great, whose Roman expeditions converted it into a military base. This then led future Arab conquerors to name the temple Luxor, which literally translates into the fortifications, giving ancient Thebes its modern name, Luxor. The city is divided between its east and west banks, with the Nile cutting through. To visit the west bank, we signed up for a tour through our hostel. This was a mistake. We barely had time to breathe before being rushed off to the next site. All these amazing places reduced to hit-and-run tourist traps by a guide who clearly didn't care. Take my advice. Hire a private guide, meet with them beforehand, and ensure that you get the best possible experience that you can. That being said, it wasn't a complete bust, as we ended our day strolling through Medinet Habu, a once thriving hub of economic and cultural life. The structure has kept surprisingly well, with clear depictions of ancient war victories and grim images of scribes counting the severed hands and genitals of fallen enemies, kept intact for history to take note of. One thing that struck me, however, is how most of the faces on the statues have been destroyed. This, it would seem, has been due to the hubris of various monotheistic religions, who didn't seem to have it in them to be able to look upon the faces of other people's gods after taking their lands. Ever since I can remember, I had always dreamt of sailing on the Nile River. So we hired a boat to ferry us over to a felucca named Nefertiti, owned and operated by Captain Mohammed and his 2 sons. Unfortunately, we had chosen a day where there was very little wind for sailing, and the two boys were actually made to pull us downriver from the side of the bank. I was stunned. I felt horrible, so I turned to their father to express my concern at making these kids work at our expense. And the captain looked at me, and all he said was, "No, you have to work to eat." So I sat down and I thought really hard about what he had just said, and I respected his fatherly wisdom.
It's hard and cold though. The best thing for me is train is moving, but my heart is stationary.
The boys pulled us a few kilometers upriver to a place called Banana Island, a small, palm-covered village, lush with fields and bountiful fruit trees.
Seasons change.
Scattered about the island are ancient tools that hint at a simpler way of life, one long forgotten by time and made possible thanks to the generosity of the Nile itself.
These games.
Once we got back to the boat, the true importance of the Nile began to set in. While it was first made famous in the West by literary icons such as Florence Nightingale and Gustave Flaubert for its majestic beauty, I started to see it as something more, as a vein that carried this nation's very lifeblood to and from its heart. As rulers of Egypt changed over and over throughout the millennia, as monuments to civilizations rose and fell around it, the Nile always remained, offering people a chance to thrive, no matter what god or idol they decided to revere. The Nile has shaped history as much, if not more so, than the life it has and continues to support. And in my opinion, that's what makes it incredible.
Seasons change. It'll never be the same. I'm hoping I will stay the same. Reasons strange. Why we almost play these games.
As the sun painted the clouds and horizon with an evening hue, our kind captain and his two boys invited us to join them for dinner. We ate together in silence, the boat bobbing back and forth, and for a brief moment, everything felt right with the world.
Seasons change. It'll never be the same.
We would leave Luxor, impressed and enlightened by our experience. Heading north along the coast of the Red Sea, we climb Mount Sinai and explore the Gulf of Aqaba in part 3 of our Egyptian adventure.